The body is a sacred garment. It's your first and last garment. It is what you enter life in and what you depart life with, and it should be treated with honor. Martha Graham. Welcome to a new episode of DiBS Dance is Bullshit. My name is Miguel Toro, and I'm hosting this podcast beside my friends Max Levy.
Hello.
Saul Vega Mendoza.
Hey.
And Malcolm Sutherland.
Hello.
So on today's podcast, we are joined by Sara Enrich Bertran. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for having me.
No, a pleasure. So Sara is one of the dancers appearing in the piece we chose to watch this week. The piece is Cheer by Felix Landerer, a show recorded in Freies Theater Hannover and that was premiered online. Reading a short synopsis examines precisely this present and the existence in the here and now, the body as a reflection of the passing away and dealing with the present. So, Sara, coming back to you a bit, let us know your background, where have you danced, where are you from, those little things for the listeners.
Okay, hello everyone. I come from Barcelona, where I studied in Institut del Teatre, which is like the professional conservatory. And I was super lucky because I could join IT Dance, which is the young company of Institut del Teatre. And I was dancing for a while in Barcelona with a couple of companies as well as some projects. Then, unfortunately, because of the big crisis of 2009, all the artistic activity was quite lost, let's say. But I was super lucky because I got a contract with Northern's. I was dancing for 2 years. And then after I joined Carte Blanche, so I was living in Bergen for 4 years. And after that, in 2016, I moved to Berlin and I started like a new chapter as a freelance dancer. But quite happy because, another way it gave me the freedom to face other challenges, to study again, to even be brave, to like co-found a dance collective and to start facing another chapter as a dancer with a freelance activity, let's say.
Yes.
And so far so good.
And since then you have been dancing in different projects as well as in your own collective, right?
Exactly, because I think working in Berlin, it's quite hard. I would say like maybe in those 4 years, I had like a couple of projects or 3 only. And mainly I've been working around Germany, let's say. But I think as a base, it's extraordinary. It's an amazing city. I've been working also with Felix, with Elena Waldman, with Malcolm. We had also some experiences with a choreographical center in Heidelberg, with Malcolm's piece as well as the collective's piece. So, quite an adventure, the freelance world.
Yeah, and just before we start the conversation with everyone, just let me tell you before everything, you looked really good in cheer. Like I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it, honestly. You look amazing. And yeah, I'm really happy that I could see you rehearsing with Malcolm though this day that I was there, because yeah, you are an inspiring one.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, guys, who wants to start giving his opinion on this piece? What did you think? I always start with the open question like that, and then we dig into the piece.
He always drops the bomb.
Yes, and because I'm presenting, I don't need to be the one replying first. Yeah. Great silence. It's great for podcast.
Silence is the easiest way to cut out material that you don't want to share for the podcast. You know?
Yeah, that's true. It's the same base
Exactly.
as the if you are not making any money, you are not losing any money.
I will start. Silence. Um, I quite enjoyed watching this piece. I didn't walk away from it with a lot of like heavy metaphysical depth from my perspective, but I was quite riveted the whole time. I think a lot of elements were really high quality, and it made it very easy. I don't want to say like easy to watch. It's I'm not looking for that kind of work, but like there was no part of the work where I was like, well, this is lacking, and I'm getting distracted, and like I was there the whole time. I think it also helps that it was very well filmed. Like what we watched seemed to be meant to be taken in the way that it was filmed. At least this video was so. It was really an experience. Yeah, all the dancers were very, very good in what they were doing and what they were executing, and very just you could see all the detail and precision at such close range with the camera, and you didn't feel like you were missing any of those details. And I was wearing nice headphones, so I could really hear all the details in the music too. I mean, it gets compressed in the video, but after I watched it, I told my roommate, like, if you watch this piece, you have to watch with headphones. Even if it's bad headphones, you cannot watch this on a laptop speakers because you're missing a lot. So, but having said that, I really like Christoph's music. I thought it was really nice.
Yeah, I completely agree with the music. It was the best. Well, one of the best things for me in the piece.
Yeah, no, I mean, Christoph's work is amazing. I've heard a few things already from him, and I don't know. Each time I like, I like it each time better than the last. Yeah, he's also such a cool guy, and I don't know. His work is super rich, I find. And yeah, I also really enjoyed the piece. I mean, for me personally, I am a groupie, a fan from Felix Landerer's work. From like it was love at first sight. No, since I first watched a piece of his, I immediately loved it, and it's been like that ever since. So I mean, that's why I also didn't wanted to talk the first, because I feel like I feel that my opinion might be a little bit, just a tiny bit biased. But yeah, I mean, it's also a personal opinion, no personal taste. I I loved it. I loved every bit of it, and although I have to say I did drift away a little bit sometimes. I don't know if because I was a bit distracted already from before, or thinking about, I don't know, unpacking my boxes at home, or I don't know. Maybe because my brain was a little bit busy with other things. A few times, like I remember exactly about 2 times that I had to grab my thoughts, like my attention again back into the piece to refocus onto it. But it was like a question of a second, It was not like I was completely gone. And yeah, I mean, as Max was saying, also dancers were amazing. It's an amazing performance from them too. Composition, I really loved it too. How he played with the individualities, but also the relationship in between all the dancers and the space. I love the light design with all these lights surrounding the the dance space. I have to say, by the end of the piece, I was not disappointed, but almost. I don't know. Maybe the how you say the possibilities, the technical possibilities were already like at the maximum level, and he couldn't do much more with what he had. He meaning Felix. But I wish I could have seen a bit more. I don't know, different atmospheres or different light effects with that setup, which I found really interesting. And at the end, only at the very end, there was a few moments. But yeah, it wasn't really something that bothered me or anything. It was, as I said, as a whole show, as a whole piece, I really, really enjoyed it.
Mm. Yeah, what about you, Malcolm?
Yeah, similar to Saul, I've been following Felix's work for quite long, and I've been traveling whenever I've had the time. I've taken the occasion to travel from Berlin to Hanover and to, like, see performances from him. So I've seen, I don't know, around 5 pieces, I think. And so I know his work a little bit, and but therefore I would say, like, the bar was kind of high for me,
Of course.
having seen his work, and some of them have really, like, impacted me a lot. And but although I did have quite a positive feeling with this piece, I think I'm a bit the same as what Max was saying. I enjoyed watching it, but I didn't take a huge amount away from it, like, to sort of bring me into deeper thoughts, like late at night or the next day. I enjoyed the occasion of watching it. And as you've all said already, like, great dancers, and Felix is a really strong choreographer. And yeah, it was very nice to watch, but I wasn't brought into, like, some sort of far away deep place of thought or contemplation or anything like that, which I do quite like to be brought to that place, I have to say, but that's just my personal view on, like, watching dance, let's say. And yeah, I wasn't able to watch with headphones, unfortunately, because I was watching with my girlfriend at the same time, so we were only with a speaker, so I wasn't maybe able to appreciate Christoph's work as much as you guys say. But I, as I said, I've heard works from him before, and I know already how talented he is, and I understand why they have such a long-term collaboration together. And yeah, no, in general, I found it nice, sort of brought into this very sort of circular atmosphere with the lights and how the camera was moving. Although I would say, again, it's a bit more of a personal thing. I'm not so into so many solos one after the other. Just choreographically and sort of, like, strategically speaking, it felt a bit monotonous, like solo after solo after solo at one point. But I know I'm sure Sarah's going to elaborate on that later on, but mostly down to how the piece was created, and I guess mostly out of solo material. And I guess from there he had to compose everything together. But I was much more focused than kind of the last third, let's say, from this moment where Sara and Luigi were together on stage. And there I sort of, I don't know, I felt a much stronger connection with you guys, and, like, compositionally was really, really nice, that moment you had with Luigi. And then from there going into the final duet with Xander and Anila also, again, it was like a really nice upward curve for me, and I really enjoyed sort of the last third of it especially.
Great.
Yeah, I'm in a bit of agreement with Malcolm about, like, kind of the repetition of the work, that you could part of the reason I think there's so much precision is that a lot of the materials is repeated, and in different formats or in different composition, but very much the same. And so, like, I wanted a bit more in those materials when more than one person was on stage, or more than 3 people were on stage. Like, when that started happening, I was like, okay, cool, we're getting there, and then it was over. So, like, I also felt that, but I also wondered quite a bit, like, why it was structured like this, if it had anything to do with the current world situation, and if that had an effect on it. So I reserved any sort of, like, judgment on that. I also wish there was a bit more of, like, a progression of variety as it was going on, I guess.
Yeah, also similar to me happened that too. No, that I mean, I said before in another podcast, I remember that I have kind of a hard time with pieces nowadays that are only about movement and where nothing but movement happens. And this was sort of this piece. But knowing a little bit Felix's work, I know he likes even using humor on stage, and he likes doing different things, different scenes, working on different stages within the same piece. And that's something I found that didn't really happen so much in this piece. It was more of to me, was more like a statement, something really focused on something more specific. And I sort of wanted to ask you, Sarah, if that was the case, no, if this time he was looking for something more particular to communicate, some kind of message, or if he was focusing while working, while creating in I don't know, in a specific in a specific point that he wanted to talk about.
Well, like, I think the full evening, because that would have been a full evening with Cheer from Felix and There and After from Alexandra. The title was Cheer. And I think it was also a bit his starting point, like to express this state of joy, of happiness, but only as a starting point, as a theme. And we actually, this time, we were not really discussing much about the concept or the thing. We're actually developing a lot of material, raw material that, let's say that it can go into several directions lately. So if the base is clear, then he could easily adapt it into wherever would go. But it was very much from the beginning like solo work orientated. So I have to say we already started some physical duets, like with contact, which of course got lost in the way. But yes, it was like a solo work orientation, and the whole theme, I would say, of course, I think that with the Corona situation, maybe even highlights even more this, but the whole concept or inspiration, I think that would be just experiencing that moment, that day, and being able to make instant decisions that would affect the rest of the material. So it was very challenging, because I would say every dancer got maybe 5 or 6 minutes solo, which is the solo that, for example, Xander does in the beginning. So that's the material, I think, that you both said, right? That you realized that the material was the same. Max, you just said. Completely true. We got every dancer like 6 minutes, and then we actually were playing a lot in the beginning with speed, with different emotions, like improvising with that material. But then at the end, of course, it was more framed, but still, I think that he wanted us to have the freedom to be able to choose and to play with it. And we started actually doing runs 2 weeks before the premiere. And the funny thing is, like, every day in the morning, we would work in a structure, and the structure would be the same every day. We would start with the main solo, which would be like 6 minutes, and then we would start with the round of like 1 minute solo per dancer, and then some rounds, and there would happen some interactions with duets, but of course without any physical contact, and then that would lead into the end, which would be the longest duet. Every day of the week, we would just say, okay, today we start with Anila. So Anila would start the main solo, and then we would all do, like our 6 minute solo, but divided in chunks of only 1 minute. It was like actually very challenging for the body and the mind to set an order every morning and then to be able to run the piece. We got 6 different versions, and I think it was fantastic because we all had the time to also to play a bit more, because like I think the first solo it's a bit it should be very free, you know, like you have the time to express the solo, to play with it, to really play with timing, interactions. That was a bit like the recipe of the night.
Okay.
And it was super nice because every day we would be a different version. And then you also I want to answer you about this because you also mentioned the lights. So music, which of course I agree, like Christoph is just fantastic, he's amazing. We had some musical cues or references, but our main reference was the time. So the stage was divided in 12 lights, which were, the lights would be our clock, right? And then the lights were shifting the lights in 5 seconds. So we would say that the stage was a big clock, and then we would orientate sometimes with visual cues. If we could see the dancer moving, okay, I go, that's a movement cue. Or sometimes I would be backstage with our phone and our time. And then, okay, 8:30, I go, boom, solo start. So it's also nice, but then every day, you know, the time shifted a bit, and you could see like how small things can really change, you know, the whole theme. And I think that even with Corona, you see much more like, oh, what I see is like characters, they are lost and they're really longing for this contact, you know, like really like to find an interaction or something. And then with the whole timing, it kind of make a different story every run with it. Sorry, that was a very answer for a short question.
It's great. It's great. I think the way you are explaining now how you created the piece connects to how much I thought you guys were owning the material, because I didn't think it was only because there was repetition on the material, but there was some sense of like the material being completely yours in a way. Like each one of you had different qualities and different speeds and different set of steps that to me it really made it seem either that you created that material and then just Felix composed it afterwards, or he created everything but knowing perfectly you guys and knowing your skills and working with your capacities to the 100%, you know. And from your face, it should be the second one.
He was really composing all the solos. Of course, he knows us, you know, and he knows at the end of the day what could fit better to Xander, to Anila, to Aaron, to Luigi, to me, to Tiana, you know. So, but again, that's why I really love to work with him, because that's also maybe like my approach to movement. But I love it because I feel super challenged, which is also something a bit that I'm lacking in the freelance scene. So I think for me, I feel fulfilled when I can really be myself. I can put a bit my personality. This is me. This is who I am. But at the same time, to feel extremely challenged, to be brave, to be out of your comfort zone. And then I think that's when you really learn. And so coming back to the topic, he was really framing the steps, but again, really giving us the freedom to play with dynamics, with timing, with textures. So it's really been about, we've been talking a lot, of course, a bit like practicalities, technical things, of course, sure, but more about how do we things. What's the sound of this movement? Where I am now? Where is the gravity? What's the color? What's the smell of this little dot that I see in my t-shirt? You know, like really about looking at yourself and looking at your body while you dance. For me, it was very challenging, the topic of the focus. It's not that I want to, I don't know, make a statement, but at looking at the audience or like to encourage or arise some kind of questioning. But the focus is something that we were really working a lot. So it's bring the focus into you, help that to experience more what you're, and I think it helped a lot.
Do you think that's particularly for this piece because you didn't have an audience in which to bring your focus to? Do you think that was particularly highlighted for this work, that he wanted to see more inward focus because there was no audience, or that he's always working in that way?
No, I think it's something, maybe it's a new direction he's going to. I'm not sure. But yeah, since the beginning, he was talking about this direction, and yeah, right. It would make a difference, no, with audience, but still, I don't think that for us, it shouldn't change so much. So, yeah. I guess it's the main topic, like it's about us and our experience in that time. And hopefully, I mean, I think I agree with also what Mark said, that I think that Valeria Lampadova, or Lampadova, I don't really know how to pronounce that, she did an amazing job. She was a dancer herself, and I have to say, like, we only shoot one day. We did 2 runs, like in a totale frame, and then only one run where she was inside, and crazy, because I mean, you can really see that she has the instincts. She can really read where the body will go to really follow the movement while she was inside, like one shot, guys. That's I think fantastic job.
Had she seen the piece before? Like, had she been involved in rehearsals and stuff, or did she only just come then to like sort of shoots then?
Not in rehearsals. I mean, she came like, I don't know when, maybe a month before. We were doing like this. I don't know if you've seen these clips of all the dancers, which is a bit like introducing every dancer, but at the same time is the material that we own. So that was as well a teaser for the piece. So she came and she had maybe a bit of an idea, but I have to say, like, the whole piece as itself, of course, she had no idea, because as I said before, we're experiencing every day a new run order, and then she came and she saw it. Like, she's amazing.
Okay.
Chapeau.
Yeah, she is really, really, amazing. It was sort of the same last time when working with Jessie.
Inside Out.
Yeah, I don't know if, yeah, she came just for a day, checked, okay, done, there, and did an amazing job. She's really, like, talented. But yeah, actually, I wanted to thank you for the, explanation and all that. And especially because of the lights, I'm kind of I don't know what to think, if because in the video I didn't appreciate the clock thing, the 12 lights switching on and off, and you see them switching on and off, but because the camera moves so much, that sort of time regulating thing with the lights that you were talking about for you guys to take cues was kind of lost, or so. It's really good to know, actually, because now it makes all much more sense to me.
To be honest, I don't know how much Felix and Till, which is the light designer, wanted to show that, but I agree that probably in the Totale video you could see that, and of course as an audience as well. But again, I don't know if that was a must,
I was gonna say, like, because Max said before that this felt that it was meant to be shown this way, and definitely at some point it was, but I think the work from the video designer was even greater, because of the fact that saying that they recorded it in only 2 run-throughs and all of that, because Felix's idea for the piece was not decided watching the video and deciding, okay, no, this we need to adjust, this we need to pick something else, but instead on the stage with you guys watching the piece on stage sitting as if he was audience. So yeah, the work from the editing is even greater after you are telling this information.
Exactly. And I have to say also, of course, Felix just said the other day that he was also probably telling her, like, for example, in this specific scene, I would really like that to have this shot because, of course, like create something that you want that people can look at that material from that specific angle. So I have to say, like, she's great, she's amazing, but he also was kind of giving a lot of input or ideas of like how maybe he wanted. But definitely, I mean, he trusted her. It's not the first time. I think also it looks like it's gonna be also a long-term collaboration. And I have to say, I think for all my friends around and family especially, because I just told them, like, listen, we have this show, but first of all, make sure you keep the time and you have the correct device to watch the piece and like the correct sound system, because I think that the piece really deserves that. It was not designed to be a video, but okay, as it is now, I think that we should really take it seriously. You know what I mean? Because I mean, I don't know, maybe people just are scrolling down in Facebook, they see this link, they just open, okay, let's watch the movie. No, like, and this I got quite, not angry, but I was like, man, let's take it seriously, we've been working hard for that. I think that at some point, nobody was working. We're the only freelance group that were working, and I think we deserve that, or like, the piece, all the work, it deserves to be treated like seriously, like properly. So I put a lot of stress in that, telling people, like, of course, please support us. And also, like, can you imagine, like, all the production costs also went higher, like suddenly they had to hire Valeria to film, they had to have a different agreement with the theater to be able to shoot longer days maybe, and with, of course, like, let's talk about all the social distancing and super hyper hygienic measures, like it's been a lot of work, and with Corona time, everything took double time to be able to do things. It's been, so for that, I'm like, okay, make sure you're relaxed, you're ready to watch the show, and then like you can really enjoy the show. Then, of course, it's aesthetics. You can like the piece more or less, but I think be able to really have your own idea about the work. I think it's really important that you give it the attention that it needs.
I was gonna do a little bit of a spoiler of this episode, because at the end of the episode we do a recommendation, and I prefer to say it now just in case someone listening doesn't get to the end. The recommendation today would be to actually support the company. At the end of the video of the of Cheer, you have the option to go to a link and support the company. The work they are doing, you can watch it for free, and it's up to you how much you can support with, but we should, because this work deserves it. I would pay a ticket to watch this a couple of times, not only once.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, because I think it is important. The only thing which I also mentioned to the company, there's only one option, which is through PayPal. And I have to say, like, I got PayPal, I don't know, some months ago, but, imagine, I would say, even the older generation, maybe they don't even have PayPal, they don't know how it works. So I was like, it could be nice also maybe to have another way to be able to support it. But I would say just by watching it in a TV or with a proper sound system, that's already a lot. And then, of course, if
otherwise, Sarah, just give us your IBAN and we send money there.
After all, I'm a freelancer. Actually, I'm super lucky. I am employed right now, which is also amazing in Corona times. So thanks God, thanks whoever.
Great. So we wrote here a few topics that we can touch that I thought about, after watching the piece, writing a few notes, and right now I think all of us here have been already dancing as a freelance. Me not so much, because also Corona has destroyed my first year.
Excuses.
But yeah, we have all been in a full-time company, if you can call it that way, and also as freelancers. So I wanted to just compare a little bit what's the life in one, and which difficulties you find in one, which difficulties you find in another one. So to start with it, for example, Malcolm, like how well do you cope with keeping in shape during this time, like having the difference of working every day in the company and kind of being already in shape and just having to do it by yourself?
Yeah, I think that's difficult, no matter Corona time or not. I think that's a difficult thing to maintain, even when the world is revolving properly. And it is hard to keep shape as a freelancer for several different reasons. One of the main ones being constant traveling, and maybe you're in a place and you're in a project, and maybe they don't provide classes for you, and you're in a new town or city, and you don't know where you can take class or if you can take class. And there's or by the time you found out the project's almost over or something. That's happened to me also before. Because it does depend on which projects you're involved in, even if they provide a class for you. For example, the one I've just started again now, there is no warm up. Where the incentive is that we warm up together, and it just necessitates from the dancer much more self-discipline. And I guess you have more freedom. One thing I do like is that you have more freedom to choose the type of training you want to do if you have the availability to take training at that time. For example, the company I was in before, and we all met each other, it was 99% ballet training. And I've really appreciated in the freelance world being able to explore different teachers, different methodologies, different ideas, different backgrounds of quite a big range. And that I've really, really enjoyed a lot. I've just not had enough access to it as I would have liked, or as I would have hoped, let's say, just due to logistical complications and amongst many other things that just sort of come up in the freelance way of life, let's say.
So guys, and you prefer to work out doing only dance training, or there is something else that you actually enjoy way more as freelance? Because what I've noticed in myself is that because here in Saarbrücken I don't have the option to take any other class that is not ballet, and I've been a bit fighting ballet for a while in my career, and now that I could not take class, I decided not to, and I think I was wise, because I'm starting to be again happy to take a little bit of ballet training. But that made me either create my own warm-ups, my own classes, my own improvisations, or actually enjoy way more training on the gym, just going to the gym and doing different trainings with the bicycle or things like that. So you guys, how do you feel on training in different ways that is not only dancing?
I think it's necessary and healthy for the body to not only do one kind of work, that even dancing, like whatever dance it is, if it's ballet class to warm up, or if it's contemporary class, or if it's whatever kind of dance class you do to warm up, if you do too much of it, you do such weird movements and such unnatural movements too, that the body starts having problems, having trouble from it, no? And what I found as a freelancer was that I was able to keep a balance in between ballet class, contemporary class, improvisation, but also training on my own, training in the gym, doing sort of Pilates based warm ups or yoga based, or and yeah, I felt a big difference in my body. I felt, although I was older and working a bit less, I was fitter somehow. I was able to work in a more efficient way because my body was ready. It was not biased to one specific kind of training.
Mm. And you, Max,
I
were
think for
gonna say?
me,
Yeah.
I think like I'm of very similar mind also, but I think it's important to look at it not just like from an aspect of like what's good for the body, but like if I was going to be if I knew that I was just going to do classical ballet, then I think it would be important to make sure you're just taking a majority classical ballet, because you need to be good at what you're going to do on stage. You need to be good at what you're going to rehearse. But I mean, aside from the fact that most freelance dancers are not ballet dancers, I think also like we don't really know what kind of work we're going to end up doing in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year. You might know a little bit ahead of time if it's with someone you've worked before, or you watch their videos and you know, if it's the first time you're working with a choreographer and you guess what you're going to be having to do. But I felt like a lot of times I needed to be quite like versatile in what I needed to be prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a huge reason why I think this versatility in what you're doing to stay in shape is very important for your work. I mean, I agree with Saul that in general my body feels better when I don't only do one form of training, but I think it helps a lot then when you do get into the studio that you have like a lot of access points for reconnecting to your body. I mean, in the corona time, I am awful at staying in shape. I've never been one to like get out of shape very easily, even if I'm not training. So it's not like I have like sagging, you know, love handles or anything. But but I do have like a very difficult mental motivation to do that. Like even doing it every other day in a week is really difficult for me. Like, and at the moment I do like a mix of yoga and Pilates and like some TheraBand exercises. But when I wasn't in quarantine, lovely quarantine, I was, you know, when I was living in Berlin, I was going to class. I think that was the most regular thing I did was ballet class still, because for me it's just what I like. But I did attend some contemporary warm-up training or some improvisation. But I think I didn't really like going to a lot of dance classes. I don't know, I'm a dancer, but I just didn't like going to dance classes. So I ended up going swimming, or like I know Saul was also doing is I liked going bouldering, or when I was in Berlin I needed to bike everywhere. So I actually just, even going from my apartment to the theater to take a ballet class was like 45-minute bike ride for me one way. So I was biking an hour and a half every day and then taking class. So there was quite a variety in what I was doing myself to stay in shape, if it was providing that for me.
Yeah, and something else related to the change on when you are a freelance dancer than when you are the member of a company. It's we already mentioned it, like how much more do you have to put your own effort on something? How much more do you need to be the one forcing yourself, or forcing maybe is not the right word, but putting yourself on the situation of training and deciding it only by yourself. And this also connects a bit with the routines we create in our lives. So I don't know how you guys manage to do that routine, to create it, or even even not do it if you are completely open. Each day is a different day, and you try to aim to not create a routine on your ideas. Just to recap a little bit, Sarah, so you know what I was saying. Yes, no worries. I know connection is yeah. I was just saying that for a freelance dancer, is very different. Basically each day can be very different, and I was asking each one of you guys if you have created a sort of routine to go through the days, or you every day do something different and you work in different periods of time in the day, or yeah, having that sense if you are creating a routine or not, and just falling into what comes that day, how you are feeling that day.
Also, I think that you were talking about different training before what would be best. I think in that, for example, in that period, we're having class with Felix, and I think that, at least for me, was super helpful to have really a class towards a specific style. Because I mean, let's face it, Felix is very picky, and it's amazing. He knows what he wants, and he knows how to help you to accomplish that. So for me, having a class of that, it was very, very useful. But I have to say, as a freelancer, also, as Max said before, you have to be a bit ready for everything, right? So lately, I mean, I don't know. Also, of course, it's very important, the physical health, but also the mental one. I realized, like, going to climb, for example, with Saul and my boyfriend, I really suck. I'm really bad. But it really takes me away, and I think it's really good for my health, for my mental health. It really takes my attention into something. It's also something new. Like, it's hard as older that we get to learn to do something new. Isn't it that beautiful? I think it's super cool. So from one side I was doing this, and then I started to jog. In Berlin or in Germany, we're allowed to go outside. I was like, why not? I'm gonna face it. I'm gonna start jogging. Let's see if I get into it. I didn't. Okay. Yoga is something I always did, and I love it. But yeah, going back a bit more to the routine.
Yeah.
Yes, I need a routine. I think I am very methodic. I don't know if it's because I've been always dancing in rep companies or steady companies that then I need my security, my schedule, or just because I'm like this. And I love it. And as freelancer, you need a bit that. So I was even trying to do a class a day, and then as well I'm studying a master online. So I think discipline is a bit the key, because you need to be your own boss. But again, I mean, I like to have a bit of everything every day. I would say before going to class, I work a bit in my master, and then I'm going to class, I do my job, and then after that, it depends. Some periods where the collective is very intense, then most of the time I would adjust, right? But I like to do, let's say, a bit of everything every day. Yes, and I think classes, class, it's important, at least for me. To take class, it's important. Also, we get older, and as freelancer, you never know, like you do some projects and you are a bit going blind because you don't know what you're going to face, if it's going to be a challenge physically or mentally. So to face the start of the project as strong as you can, physically and mentally also. Sometimes it's a bit tough.
I want to hear the other guys also talking about their own routines, but we are gonna go back to the classes from Felix because I'm very interested. But let's finish with this subject, and we go back to Felix and the classes, and also to the piece.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know, like, I mean, one of the things that kind of negatively associated me with being in a company was a bit this monotony, or like going into the same thing every day, which is a bit connected to the routine thing. So
yeah,
like in a way, it was something I wanted to rid myself of, but then gradually in freelance life, I've realized how important it is to have it. So there's this funny situation where it's something I wanted to remove, but therefore actually I've needed it a lot. I think it is really important for the mental health, which Sara was talking a little bit about before. And yeah, I don't know if things in a freelance life, scheduling wise, can just become very much a blur. You can wake up one day and you don't know where you are or what month it is or what day it is or whatever. It can very much become yeah, very cloudy somehow. And I think having something that resembles a daily routine within that, even if it's like one simple thing you do every day at a certain time, I think can really help to like keep, I don't know, maybe one foot on the ground, maybe not both, but yeah. So I'm still in the search of that, to be honest. I mean, I've been freelancing 5 years, and I'm still trying to master that art of like having a routine. And I think that's particularly difficult to maintain if you are traveling a lot, or if you find yourself in unknown places or around people maybe you don't know so well, and it can affect you and challenge you to keep that sort of standard and that routine.
Mm.
Yeah, it has to do with the personality also, and what kind of lifestyle um, matches with that personality too, and like, yeah, it's very personal, no? It's something really, yeah, that every individual takes differently almost, no? For me, I was only freelancing. I've been only freelancing for 2 years, and that's gonna be it. It's gonna be 2 years, because exactly when it will be 2 years that I started freelancing, I'm going to go back to the company I was before freelancing. So, um, but even so, even if it was a shorter freelancing period, I found that it was also to do with depending on how much work I had or how much free time I had, where I was, as Malcolm was saying. No, if you're somewhere or if you're home, uh, it depends very much, and there are so many factors that affect it. No, that for me, I was struggling with it a lot the first year. I was really having a hard time. It was very much a blur. It was very much like the change was really hard on me. And when I finally started getting the hang of it and feeling a bit more at ease with it and happy and yeah and comfortable with the way, was when I finally accepted that yeah, that routine wasn't there anymore. That routine that I had in a company, in a rep company, was something completely different to what I had right now in that moment, no? So once I accepted that and I started really yeah, enjoying the moment, and if a day I had free, well, what do I feel like doing? Do I feel like dancing? Most of the time when I was free, I didn't feel like dancing. And when I accepted, it was fine not to dance in a free day or in a week that I had free in between work. When I let go of that stress of fuck, I'm free, but I should keep in shape because I may have work afterwards or I have work in 2 weeks. When I let go of that stress was when I finally could start building a routine of my own. And for me, let's say that the emotional and mental happiness and comfortability of the whole thing was key, rather than the physical, rather than the keeping in shape, keeping busy, keeping working, you know.
Yeah. And you,
And
Max?
for me,
Yeah.
I'm awful. I am not an example of good routine. I am. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting what Saul said, that he had this kind of like pressure or fantasy or habit that was inclining him to train in a class or in a ballet class or some sort of dance training, that this was like a daily necessity, that, you know, how can you call yourself a dancer if you're not taking dance class every day? And there are definitely people that do this, but I think there's definitely like a point, a lot of people, especially if they've already experienced 3, 4, 5+ years performing in a company and already having this as their habitual background, you need to disconnect from it. Otherwise, you do not know what you're doing it for.
Yeah.
And I think you regress actually if you don't disconnect from it. You don't actually grow. I mean, maybe you disconnect from it, then you realize you really want it deep down, and this is what drives you. Then it's great, you know. But I did see a lot of people that just all they did was just take class, and I didn't know if they were ever growing or changing in their mentality for dance, or their spirituality for dance, maybe even. And so maybe this is a good segue to say that I am someone that doesn't do that, but it doesn't mean that's a good thing. I am very bad at keeping a routine. I already was bad even when I was just in Berlin for a couple of years. Like, depending on the job, I would go away. During that job, I would be very bad at making sure I was doing things. I was always enough in shape because I've never been, like I said earlier, I've never been a person that ever gets super out of shape. I get maybe a bit skinny, but I don't get like down. So, but it's completely mental, and it has nothing to do with my physique. Like, of course, maybe there's some things that I realize, okay, I'm not as buff as I was before, or I used to be able to do 2,000 push-ups. Now I can only do 1,999. But
You wish.
but but I really felt the difference in my mentality more than my physicality. It's only just like you feel very like self-conscious, in a point of like that you feel an inability to do the things you want to do and the goals that you have, because you don't set a routine for yourself, even if it's not dance class. And like Sara said, like, you are your own boss, which as a statement might be sounding like, you know, it's just a buzz phrase that you hear many people talk about in the freelance scene, regardless of dance or not dance. In any freelance scene, people have to remind themselves that they are their own boss. But I think, like, why do you have a boss? Because the boss tells you what your goals are, not just you need to be doing this, but why you need to be doing this, why you decided to enter a particular field of work, why you said that this is your goal, what you want to achieve in 1 year or 3 months or 10 years, whatever distance the goals are. And if that you don't have a person or a part of yourself that tells you this is what you set, if you do not reach it, you're not a failure, but you definitely didn't reach the goal. Mm-hmm. It's very black and white. You choose a goal and you reach it, or you choose a goal and you don't reach it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you're a good or bad person, but you know, if you don't set those rules for yourself, if you don't set the routine for yourself, and then you don't reach that goal, you wonder why you didn't reach it. Mm-hmm. You know? So, I mean, I say this because I'm very self-critical, and I don't like that I don't have a routine, or I'm bad at keeping a routine, and I don't like that about myself. But at least this is honestly my current situation and my current struggle. So
yeah, I find it very like very nice how you put it, like the your own boss, setting your goals and setting why you are creating a routine or keeping in shape, or all these things that are all on the same bubble. And something actually that was great for me during the pandemic is that I learned to change my goals and change my perspective on, especially on being in shape. Like before, I always had the idea of being in shape for a specific dance, being in shape for a choreographer, being in shape to be taken on an audition. And since, let's say, 2 months ago or something like that, I have changed that. And many people that use movement that are not dancers have helped me on that. I don't mean personally, but just by watching guys like Ido Portal that we mentioned already before, or people that do yoga for as their lifestyle and things like that. And it was great to change my mentality and to create a habit of movement that it was not related directly to dance, and not related to having the great shape for dancing, but instead having the great shape for living and using my body to the full capacity of my body. And this is something that, of course, I haven't done yet, but I'm on that path. And that has been connected directly to my mental health. And it's been just wonderful to find that and to realize that, because even if you have heard people already saying these things, I didn't feel it. And just 2 months ago, I started feeling it. And it's great. It's really great, because at least that part of the freelancer, that which is the keeping in shape and to creating, feeling that you are capable of dancing still and moving, that part, it's on the right track. Now I need to go on the other track, that is the writing projects and selling yourself and all those other
Well,
things.
no, I mean, we've been talking about the routine of physical maintenance, but I also mean the routine of managerial work. Like, this also requires routine. This also is part of the boss that asked you what you want to do, and if you need to get those things, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. And for me, I have a problem on both sides. So like, I get those things done. I'm very organized to say like what I set out for myself, but to say, okay, I wake up, I do this, and then from here to this time, I'm only working on this, even if it's different every day. I mean, usually it is different every day, because once you finish one proposal or one idea, you don't need to work on it anymore. So of course you need new objectives, sub-objectives, but like, I'm very bad at this anyway.
Plus, to say also that as dancers we have been trained, but for the whole bureaucratic side of being a freelancer, we haven't been, and it's huge. It's a huge side. It's all the paperwork you need to do, with all these different places you have to go. I don't know. It's huge. So yeah, there's very little help also in terms of people that inform you how you should do things, or no, you learn it on your own, hitting yourself against the wall, no? As we
On
say
the
in
job
Spanish.
training, it's called.
Okay. There you go. So not to mention,
I really like what Mark was saying about putting goals, putting a purpose. As dancer, of course, we've been training all our lives. We know you want to be on shape. Let's say fast weight, you take class, okay. And what about the other small things? Like small things that can make you happy, like small decisions that you make every day to empower this mental health. Like I think that all that decisions are there, but maybe consciously. So in that sense, I think that, Miguel, what you were saying, or what I could relate to, is like dance, of course, it's a fantastic tool, but I would say movement in general is a nice way to connect to yourself, to ourselves. So that's why for some people, running would be the key. They get into a trip and suddenly they connect. For other people, it's a bit more meditation. For others, it's really yoga. But that's why I think that maybe once you're into dance, it's so addictive in a way, because of course you really connect to yourself. But on the other hand, we're super lucky. It's our profession, man. We're being paid to do what we love to do. Like, wow. So for that, it's like already feeling super grateful. But yeah, and I guess it's about, you can think it in the boring way, like, okay, I need to be on shape. I'm my own boss, right? I need to do this role. Right? Okay, which are the tools? Well, I set my own tools. Maybe it's going for class every day. That's maybe an easy and boring way to do, but about, I don't know, finding other tools that can help you facing that challenges of that project. You actually don't know the outcome because you didn't start yet. So no, it's I think it's super interesting. And with the time, I find that, of course, I love dance, but also there's other movement related ways.
Yeah, I mean, what's really great about freelance is that you have the time and space to find all these things out about yourself, you know, what drives you, what are your goals, or what kind of physical training you want to do, or physical expression in general. And yeah, it was very liberating for me to have that time and space to like explore those things and find out for yourself what you like also, because in a company it's very difficult to find that, I think.
Mm.
I think, I
Yeah.
mean, like what, in addition to what Malcolm just said, like I felt this when I was in a company too, that I didn't have the perspective or wisdom or self-wisdom, I guess, like to understand why I did something, what it was for. That if I'm supposed to take class because I'm legally bound to take class, I mean, of course I wanted to take class, but then like your boss's desire for you to take class to stay in shape might not all be something you understand deep inside yourself until you're put in a situation where you're freelancing and you realize why. You realize why you need to be doing all of these things because you have a personal stake now. But one thing I wanted to say and then maybe ask is part of me has never been against going back to a company. Like, it's not the lifestyle of a company that I disliked. It was that I just simply no longer found the people I was working with as interesting to work with, worth staying in a company for. I don't mean like my colleagues. I just mean I needed a change in who I was working with, the choreographers, or so. But I have never been against going back if something interests me enough. And I thought to myself, like, wow, I might have a very much wider perspective compared to my old self if I returned to a company that I could perhaps not tolerate, but like embrace company life in a very different manner than I did before. So I guess I have a kind of question now and a question for the future is like, because Sara, now you are employed with working with Felix, and I assume it's not like a year-round company. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly what I read when the calls for Curious Nature were happening, but it's quite like longer term. It's you have a period of time where you work with Helge and then perform those works and work with Felix and perform those works. So like it's longer than a normal period of a project, So like, and Saul, I know you're going to be going back to a company. So like let's say having your eyes opened and then returning to a kind of, well, for Saul, the exact same position, or in Sara's case, maybe slightly different but same kind of position. Like, I wonder what it is like for you to return to that and bring, let's say, the wisdom that you've garnered from those past years back to a place you were quite unhappy with before.
I guess like just the fact of having a class, and I would say a quality class every day. Wow. I think that since I've been through the freelancing now, I appreciate much more and I cannot complain. I've been super lucky because I think that in the companies I've been, they're really invested in the guest teachers, and as dancers, we had a lot of saying, and also we're doing a lot of variety of aesthetics and classes. So I think like, that said, I think like since I've been freelancing for like, let's say 3-4 years and now coming back, let's say to this company, wow, I think I'm super grateful for the class, for having already the space, for working with people that we really connect well, and to create somehow a new family. What I feel, but maybe that's also because we're getting older, is like, but before, I would be living in Bergen and that was my life and that's it. And I would see my boy once per month or even less. Now, since it's also possible, so I work, let's say, in Hanover, but still my life is in Berlin. So, I mean, that's also stuff, like traveling every weekend, but that's my decision. And again, I'm super thankful because they're being really supporting me. They really allow me to go every weekend. Like, it's really, I would say, and also like somehow I was like calm, like, okay, for some months I don't need to stress and I don't need to look for auditions like crazy, because I don't know, what do you think, guys? But I also think maybe it's the age, but every time for me it was harder to find a project that I felt both interested and also challenged. Like, you ask me now with who would you like to work, I mean, it's not about putting some names there, but so in that sense, I'm super thankful that I can be working with people that I love, but also calmer, saying, okay, I have some months that at least I don't need to worry about that part and really enjoy the moment. I don't know, what do you think, Saul? It's been for you?
I mean, it's pretty similar to what you're saying, actually. I mean, I haven't started yet. I'm technically still a freelancer until the 17th of August. But yeah, it's very similar to what you were describing, Sarah. Right now, I'm grateful to go back to a company. That door was never really closed and locked, and threw the key down the toilet. But I was pretty, let's say like this, I was really happy to leave the theater world, no, the theater life, theater environment too. But once I left and I went through this first year that was quite tough on me. One of the reasons why it was tough on me was because I realized that many things I was tired of, and this producing and producing and producing in a theater and never having the time to really dig into the work and really, after the premiere is done, you forget about it, you start with the new production and you just keep that piece that you just premiered in a good quality level or enough quality level so you can still perform it, but you never work on it anymore, no? I was really tired of that and I really wanted to work in a different way, but this made me realize also that I was having a lot of stress and pressure in the companies I was working in, especially the later years, but not because that pressure was being put on me by someone from the outside, say the choreographer, the directors, whoever. But a lot of it was coming, if not most of it, was coming from my own side. I wasn't coping with how the company worked because I was putting too much pressure on myself, or I was taking it the wrong way, I think. Or, I mean, the wrong way. What's right, what's wrong, no? But, yeah, topic for another podcast, Miguel.
We'll have to, especially because we have very different opinions on this. Like, for example, my opinion, I know this is just my first year as a freelancer, so maybe it changes next year or something. But also, my experiences in companies haven't been very great for myself, to say it in the softest way I can. And so that's making me be a little bit scared to go back to a company and having to deal with some situations that maybe are not pleasant. So there is an element of like fear to go back to a company. Also because for some reason, like many people I've met after seeing me work and working with me either as choreographer, assistants, just colleagues, have said to me that going into the freelance world, I would be feeling great on the projects because I'm someone that cares, I'm someone that puts a lot of effort into what he does. So yeah, there has been this. The only problem is that I haven't gotten many jobs during my first year, especially because it has been like 7 months and 3 of them I have been at home. But yeah, I think it's something to dig into. The coming back into, especially maybe when you actually come back to the company, we can talk about this in more depth.
Yeah, I mean,
Then look at this beautiful project you are doing, guys.
Yeah.
yeah.
This
This is the most routine I have in my week.
I was gonna mention it. I was gonna mention it. This is part of my routine now.
Yeah, I think it's part of everyone's routine. I mean, everyone from DiBS, of course.
Everyone.
I think it's been, I don't know, another part of being creative, an artist. It's a different way of expression, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Great.
But yeah, coming back to the coming back to the company. coming back to the company. Yeah, I mean, I was really happy freelancing, so I wasn't really looking to go back to a company. No, I was trying and I was sending my CV here and there, and I also did the audition for Of Curious Nature, and yeah, I was trying to get into a more regular kind of work, because I was also getting a bit not tired, but for me it was also a bit energy draining to the fact of being away from home every time I had to work. I was in the same case as Sara was saying before, and as basically all of us except Miguel. We were all living in Berlin, and we barely worked in Berlin because it's really hard to work there. The community is really tight there. So yeah, working outside every time, it was I wasn't so happy with that. I am someone that really enjoys being at home and having a base and having friends close by. I regret I had to leave home because of not having a future there, because I am someone that for whom family is really important, and yeah, it's becoming really like harder and harder the longer I am away from my family. So yeah, it was something that I was sort of interested in having back in my life, sort of a base and friends around, and lucky or not, yeah, I just got back to Saarbrücken to visit friends and take class with the company, say hello to Stein, the choreographer, the director, say hi. I was never in bad terms with anyone here. On the contrary, I felt really...
Except me.
Yeah, with you, yes, but but yeah, I felt home actually here. It's just that me personally, I was having trouble with being in a company, in an institution, so I had to leave. I had to take a break, but I was in good terms with the choreographer, both personally and professionally. It was, yeah, we had a good communication. I was feeling comfortable in the company, and I didn't have any problem, so to say. And yeah, he offered me the possibility to come back to the company that time when I came to visit, simply. And well, it sort of revolted my my setup, my world, because I wasn't expecting at all a proposition like that, and well, I had to think about it for a bit. But yeah, in the end, deep down, I realized that it made me happy, that proposition. So yeah, I got really lucky. I consider myself really lucky, because that was like 2-3 weeks before the whole corona situation started. So yeah, I I consider myself really, really lucky because the freelance community right now is suffering a lot from this crisis. Also theaters, no, and I mean right now the salaries, for example, are being paid by the state, and a small percentage only from it is paid from the theater. Everyone is struggling, but if there are people struggling out there right now, it's the freelancers, no? So I mean, more on that once I am back. And as you were saying, Miguel, no, one thing is hearing and theoretically knowing about something, and another thing is feeling it in your flesh and bones. So
Yeah. So let's. I think that on today's podcast, we really went far from the piece.
Yes.
But it's great. Like we are creating, as Sara said, we are creating. But let's try to go back a little bit. And I was interested on the classes that you mentioned maybe half an hour ago.
maybe an hour before.
Without digging too much into how exactly the class works, I want to know just if it's improvised or based on exercises that are maybe a bit open, a bit free, or very set exercises of movement that you have on this routine that you created on Of Curious Nature.
I mean, in general, or this specific time in COVID-19? Because then
both.
normally with Felix, he does. I mean, I think I did the same in the first project I did with him, or actually the second. I met him in Northern. He did a fantastic piece called Feeding Monsters, already with Christoph.
Okay.
Then in People Blue, we're already kind of doing the same class, which is like a small, short warm up, a bit of stretch, connecting to your spine, basically a lot. And then it's like basically it's following a bit the same structure as we would say pliés and this font, bit of fondis. It has this structure, and then normally he ends up the exercise with the floor. And I would say since he knows pretty much his own style and he's the master of his style, he's improvising
Okay.
like every day. Though he has, of course, certain ways of moving already that even for us now it starts to be a bit more recognizable. Let's say some parts that we recognize, is that. But let's say every day is different. Let's say we know the ingredients, then every day it's a new dish.
But even if even if he's improvising, are the exercises improvisation for you, or are they kind of built?
Oh, sorry, maybe I didn't explain that correctly. So then he's showing, making in the moment, and then we set it, and that's the exercise. So
I see.
that's no improvisation so far. That's it.
Great.
Which I think is very nice and actually useful to go into his specific style. So that in that way, maybe if you are in a company, it's nice a bit to have ballet, contemporary, Gaga, Pilates, yoga, whatever. But if you are really digging into a style, and I think that, as I said before, Felix really knows what he wants. He gives us the freedom, but he really wants those paths, whatever. I think it's very, very useful to start having the color.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's necessary. He has a very particular vocabulary and language. So I think in this case particularly it's very necessary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. And also, so it kind of becomes also a vocabulary. And I think that once this layer, let's say, of the technicalities is a bit more familiar, then it's easier to put your own color on top with the solos or whatever material we work, So it's easier to go through the extra level or to the topping, let's say, of the dish. Hungry, I think. Okay, and in the Corona times,
Yes.
So we were only 6 dancers, and the studio where we've been rehearsing at Faust in Hanover, so it's quite big. So he would do the class being very aware of the personal bubble. So everybody would have a spot in the studio, and that would be it. And then after the class, we would mop the whole floor, and then we would start with individual rehearsals. And then maybe every day he would have 3 or 4 people of individual rehearsals, and then when your own individual rehearsal is over, then you mop again, so it's clean for the person after. It was like this same procedure. It was a bit, I mean, it took us a while to really get the routine, but then it was really integrated as a way of working.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice. And then it was very towards the end that when he started, let's say, composing, that of course we were wearing the masks. And it was only maybe like some days before filming that we took the masks off. It was super challenging for the stamina, especially. Like, it changes so much. Like I was using the mask in the train to Berlin, and if you use one of the professionals ones, let's say, thank you, Roman, you really feel a lack of oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
Like you really feel after 2 hours in the train, I'm like, oh, like you really need like fresh air. So imagine like doing dancing properly. So it was quite tough.
Yeah, but then when you felt the mask was off, you felt like a lot of stamina coming, and you felt it's like this athletics, no, these athletes, sorry, that they train in very high altitude to then when they go to the actual course, they are like super fast, they don't get tired at all. So yeah, maybe that's why you look
Exactly.
also very good on the video.
Exactly that.
Yeah, and yeah, just maybe because we have been talking for a while now, maybe just to be finishing already with the podcast, I what was I gonna say to connect with the piece also? Yes, that something I forgot to say before, that I still think, like, I know I have mentioned this during the other podcast a little bit. Even with this piece, we done so well to a video, to be seen in a video. I still miss a lot the live version. Like,
Yeah.
I miss so much watching dance live, for real. Like watching, especially this work that is being created just now, that is the only work that we have seen that is that recent during this pandemic. I miss so much having that energy from the dancer and experiencing the to see where they look, to see how they are breathing, to see maybe sweat on the floor. I miss it so much. And even when the work is really well done for video, I still need to have a live show.
Yeah.
Totally.
I was watching
Come-
the show.
Come to Switzerland soon.
Yes.
Come see us in Switzerland.
When is your premiere actually, Malcolm?
I think it's 9th of July.
Okay.
Noted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Come along. It's a bit expensive, but
But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to say that I realized, similar to what you were saying, Miguel, while watching the piece, how much I took for granted watching a show on a stage, like in a theater. I don't know. It's such a unique experience, actually, watching someone creating, or not creating, but representing something that's been created to be performed right in front of your eyes. I don't know, it's such a unique moment. Every show is different, and you get to experience a unique performance, even though the the whole setup, it's all set up, it's an alive thing, and that's something that's missing in a video, no? And yeah,
Be
I
your own boss and decide where to look at. For
yeah,
example,
exactly.
video is telling you where to look at, and maybe you don't
Exactly.
want to look there.
Exactly. That's something I really missed, and something I used to take for granted, and something else I did feel so much while watching the video, the show, was like,
Mm.
my goodness, how I miss moving, you know, how I miss, researching and exploring, looking at my own body from the outside, from the inside. I miss it so much.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward
I
to dancing again, and to, yeah. I wish it could be with Felix, but hopefully one day.
Yes.
Yeah. Max, you were gonna say something? No.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Saul. Like, part of the sometimes there's work that's very aesthetic and very self-indulgent, but sometimes there's this ability for self-indulgent work to be connectable. That like, and I mean, I say self-indulgent as a neutral thing, but it can also be a bad thing. It can be very exclusive to the point where a viewer cannot really understand what the person is doing, because whatever they're working on is not translatable, is not presented well, or the person doing it is not executing it very well. But this was not like that. This was like a work where you could very clearly see what they worked on, how they were working on it, and it because I'm a dancer too, like Saul, I really wanted to move after watching that piece. I was really like, dang, like that finesse, that refinement, like I want to get in somewhere and be working on something like this. Like, and it's really nice to see Felix's movement. To me, it's my first Landerer piece that I've ever seen. So like, of course, like to see Felix's work for the first time, also very inspiring. But like, it was very much like made me, it was similar to after we watched Betroffenheit, that like you see the clarity and you think, God, why can't I be in a situation where I'm doing that right now?
Absolutely.
Like this is like I mean, and we're going backwards like 2 topics ago to being in a company versus being in a freelance situation. Like in the past, I might have taken it for granted. Maybe I didn't like particularly what I was doing, a work piece I was working on, and I spent my free time in the studio afterwards to work on things I really found I cared about. But, part of me thinks often about how being in a company allows you, maybe whether you like the piece or not is a different topic, but to have a situation where you are given a ground to work 8 hours on movement is a blessing.
Yeah.
And it depends on the piece, it depends on who you're working with, but like to have that facility, that infrastructure is, yeah, that's something that I miss from a company that is really difficult to find in a freelance situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, guys, if you don't have anything else to add to today's podcast, I'm gonna go into the end. I just wanna thank Sara for being here. Thanks again. It was wonderful. And just the ending recommendation. I'm gonna have the link on the description of this video. The link to, I don't know how to even call it, but the link to Felix Landerer's company, and having this how do you
Fundraiser.
Fundraiser place.
So yeah, you can help the company, and if you watch the piece, you know how much it deserves to have a little bit of help on this time. Yeah,
I mean, you can donate money even if you don't watch the piece, I guess, if you want as
yeah,
well. But
Yeah.
of course.
Aw.
If you have seen, because I have seen other works from Felix, even in companies that are not his, and I always enjoyed it, and I always thought that it was in a great quality, even working with dancers that are not what he usually works with. So yeah, I think he deserves the fundings that he gets. So yeah, let's say goodbye to the listeners until next week. We will come back with another episode. We don't know yet which is the piece we are gonna watch, but something good, I hope, because otherwise I come here and I don't like the podcast, I don't like the piece, and so yeah, and thank you guys for being here. Thank you again. For the listeners, subscribe. Like, why don't you? Okay. Goodbye, guys. See you next week.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Take care.
Thank you. Cheers.
bye.